The Republican Zone is brought to you by Drew Murray.
Good afternoon. You're watching the Republican Zone on Usalamedia. My name is Drew Murray. I am the host, and I am here with my friend and fellow city council at large, Republican city council at large, running mate, Jim Hasher. So, Jim, thank you for coming on.
Glad to be here.
Yeah,
Glad to be here.
This time, I say you're my friend. This time 6 months ago, I didn't even know Jim Hasher. Yeah. We never met. We met the first time, I guess, at Constadters.
Yes, we did.
When we were both looking for the Republican endorsement for the special election. Mm-hmm. I think we both thought we were probably going to get it, but the meeting did go a little longer than I was comfortable. Yes. So I got a little nervous, but so I ran in 2019. I knew I was running in 2023. That was always actually my long goal. Mm-hmm. When did you decide? Okay, you ran for Congress before, number one, a few years ago, or several years ago.
Actually, it'll be 29 years this November.
Oh wow! So and you've never run since then?
No. I was a ward leader during that period of time. I served on the athletic commission during that period of time, but never ran for public.
Never ran for office again. Is that because your wife Stacey said you're not going to run for office ever again after that first race?
I think it was a combination of things. I think I had 5 boys during that period.
Let's say you had a basketball team in that.
So time. I think it kind of took a life of its own, and I think that timing's everything. And I think coming back into this now was the kids are grown, and
Exactly. I mean, it's hard. I remember when I ran in 2019 during petitions, which are coming up soon in a couple of weeks. My daughters were much younger. Now they're teenagers. I don't think they care if I leave the house. Yeah. But I went to, and this is how hard signatures was. I went to a Sixers game that night. And the only reason I went was we were going to be in a box. And I thought, maybe there's one Republican I can get a signature from. That was the only reason I went. I was exhausted. Both of my daughters grabbed me and were crying.
Yes.
And they were like, please don't go out again, Daddy. Please don't go out again. Yeah. So now that they're older, it is much easier.
Much easier, yeah.
When did you decide, okay, I'm going to throw my hat back in the ring? Was it a year ago? Or were you thinking about this a few years ago?
Well, I probably will tell you that it always intrigued me for the last several years, but the deciding factor was the beginning of the pandemic. Being in small business, I just felt like I was becoming hypocritical. I was always complaining about the bureaucracy down the hall. I was always complaining about the health department and L&I and all the problems we were facing being in small business because of the pandemic. And one day I woke up and said, hey, instead of complaining about it, let's do something about it.
That's right. And you have 2 businesses, right?
Yes, I'm a real estate broker. I've been in Mayfair section of Northeast Philadelphia for about 33 years there. Hasher Realty has been there. It's almost a landmark there now. And I also own a small restaurant bar up in the Northeast area of Philadelphia called Jimmy's Timeout.
Okay. Yeah, Linden Avenue, right?
Linden Avenue,
right
yes.
Okay. So you got hit by the pandemic probably from 2 ways.
Yes.
Both in the real estate market and obviously as a borrower, that must have been a tough period.
Very much so. And there was a lack of inconsistency the whole time one day we were open, one day we were closed, one day we were allowed outside, one day we were allowed inside, one day we weren't allowed near the bar. We never had a set situation that we were involved with from continuously. We were being told by L&I and City Hall and the health department what was best for our business instead of us being able to go there once in a while and tell them what was best for our business.
I remember at one point bars and restaurants were open and it was like a Monday they said we're closing again.
Yeah.
And the bar owners I know, and maybe it's all bars, they were like, we buy our food on Sunday or Monday. Like if they were going to do this, why didn't they tell us on Saturday, like on Monday you're going to close?
Sure.
Because they were, number one, they're small businesses, many of them. They're already getting hit by the pandemic, right. And to buy a week's worth of food that you can't now use, they were devastated.
Our first closing was the day before Thanksgiving, if you can remember. It was March 16, 2020. And basically, we got a phone call somewhere around 11, 12 that morning saying, hey, by the way, this is going to be a short-term situation. We just don't want to overload the hospitals. This is something we just want to do to basically calm things down. We're probably going to be back in the swing of things within a week. Well, 18 months later, we were never back in the swing of things. And again, there were some things that the city did that was a necessity and had to be done. And there were some things they were clueless on what had to be done.
And it was inconsistent.
was
Some
no
big box
consistency.
stores were
Yeah.
open, but
Yeah.
small businesses
I mean,
were not.
and not in defense of the city, but the state laid down some pretty harsh guidelines too. I mean, having to be able to eat something, to be able to order a drink was ludicrous. Like that was going to stop the pandemic, or coming in the door with a mask on and taking off as soon as you could sit down. These were things that were insulting to our intelligence almost that we had went through. So during that period of time, I started to really say, hey, you know what? My kids were grown. I felt that this was something, I was deeply rooted in the neighborhood. I'm the president of the Tarsdale Boys Club. I had a business. I had a family in the neighborhood. I raised my children there. In my heart of hearts, I really think I could go down there and do something good.
And you're born and raised in Philly. You're
Yeah.
Ryan guy, right?
Archbishop born and raised my whole life.
Nice.
Still hanging in the same playground I did as a kid.
Nice. I know I am not born and raised in Philly. I think some ward leaders in Philadelphia up in the Northeast still haven't forgiven me for not growing up in the city of Philadelphia. I said I can't. I can't.
Well,
I said my parents decided we were living in Philadelphia.
Exactly. That's just the way it is.
If I could have been a North Catholic or a Ryan guy, I would have.
Right.
Actually, I wouldn't. I'm a St.
Everybody has a cross to bear.
That's right. I said in the womb I knew I was going to St. Joe's Prep. But,
Everybody has a cross to bear.
That's right.
You know.
So now you're on the campaign trail. I know what I hear all the time. What is the number one issue? What is the number one complaint of the city of Philadelphia? Residents of the city of Philadelphia now. What are you hearing the most?
I think it's no question that crime and the quality of life is our number one issue. I think that it's something that is in the forefront of everything people talk about. But I think what people forget that it's related to our opioid epidemic problem in some way. I said in many of the stumps that we go out on and talk about that 86% of these major crimes are caused by a drug issue or a drug connection of some type. Even our gun problems with these ghost guns and things like that, it reverts back somehow or to another to our opioid problem and our fentanyl problem. And these drug wars and these gang wars, it's all somehow drug related.
It is. They're gangs. I mean, when three people are shot in Mayfair, that was obviously gun related, but it was drug related. It was caused by drugs.
I think anything right now you'll see has some level of relationship to a drug, and we don't even use the word heroin anymore in some of these problems. This is all a fentanyl issue. This is all a territorial issue for we are the fentanyl capital of the world right here in the city of Philadelphia.
People travel to Philadelphia
for the
purpose. Drugs.
Yes, I mean and it's become it's a public emergency. It's an epidemic. It's something that needs to be addressed immediately. Whether hopefully we're both in council to discuss this, but we need to get off our ass and get to Harrisburg and to Washington and let them know, hey, this isn't just a Philadelphia problem.
Sure.
This is a national problem that we just happen to be the whipping post.
Exactly. And I say it's going to take federal, and people say, what are you going to do? I said, number one, we need federal and state.
No question about it.
We as a municipal level, Philly is obviously not perfect, but we did not cause this problem. We are just we're just the capital of it right now. You go to K&A. I've walked the streets of K&A. I say any politician or someone like us, a wannabe politician, should walk down the streets of K&A because you would think. I live in Center City. I say we're a couple miles from Center City. I mean, you would think you were from walking in Center City to walking a K&A, you would think you were literally gone to a different country.
Yeah, it looks like a third world country. There's no question about it.
It's not 2 miles from Center City. You would think you literally went to a different third world nation.
No. Drew, I recently had a situation where a gentleman came in from New York. He was a boxing promoter, and he always wanted to do the Rocky Tour. And during that period of time, I said, okay, well, one day we'll jump in and we'll do it. Well, we got about halfway through the Rocky Tour. He said, turn the car around. And I said, what's the matter? This is a tough guy. This guy from Brooklyn, this guy been through it all. And he said, this is not normal. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, this is not how people, referring back to K&A, this is not how people live or should have to live. And, this is a guy coming from New York. So, I mean, we're kind of entrenched with it. We see it every day, and maybe we're not as alerted to it as somebody that's coming in from the outside. We're on the inside looking in. They're on the outside looking in. It's a whole different look,
And, there are proposed solutions to this issue, and one of them is, and probably the most controversial, is our safe injection sites. What are your views on safe injection sites?
Deeply against safe injection sites. Look, we all want to help this cause, but there's so many better ways to go about it. I mean, they had allocated $200 million for this epidemic. We need accountability on where that money went, and this is money that could have went towards the cure, okay, not fueling the problem.
Sure. And I always say that. I say, I don't want to arrest drug users. I don't want to arrest the addicts. I want to arrest the drug dealers. Absolutely. Right. I think safe injection sites, I know they do. They normalize drug use.
Sure.
To an addict who is, hopefully, obviously we want to get these people help, but when you normalize the drug use, they think, oh, I can go somewhere, I can do it safely. I understand the harm reduction, and I believe these people who are in favor of these sites are in favor for the right reason. They want to save them today so we can help them tomorrow. But the sites, they're not doing that. There's not like, if there was maybe, well, I probably would never be for them because it normalizes the use and it would kill communities. Yeah. Where are drug dealers going to go if there's a safe injection site? They're going to stand outside where their clients are, because it's supply and demand. That the demand is going to be at that safe injection site. So you're going to bring drug dealers into communities.
True, it's a two-part scenario too. When safe injection sites were talked about several years ago, fentanyl wasn't on our radar. Now we can kill a guy with a grain of salt. Yeah. You know, and basically, you know, we're going to let them walk into a safe injection site and basically play Russian roulette. It's not going to happen. Yeah. It can't happen. We don't have the control over the substance to be able to let them go in and do that. So therefore, the second part is, which has always been blowing my mind, we reward people for irresponsibility by selling this. How about that? I mean, don't you think these people that are bringing this product in love the fact that they're safe injection sites? Yeah. Do you think they love the fact that, hey man, you know, this is a safe place for these people to go? It encourages instead of deters. And I think that's something that we need to get a handle on quick. And again, this is not just a city problem. The state needs to get involved with this. The federal government needs to get involved with it. We just happen to be a city, an urban city. We're just the center point of this problem. It's unfortunate that we're the center point, but we are. But it needs to be corrected quickly. And I'm not saying we're going to wave a magic wand. This is going to go away. Not. We have to take baby steps with this. And I've said it when I just had an interview the other day, and I mentioned about not fueling the problem by doing everything we possibly can to educate our youth, keep our rec centers state of the art and open, to be we don't fuel that problem.
Yes.
Okay. Deal with the problem at hand, but don't fuel it. Okay. And there's our starting point. And making sure the money that's allocated to fix that problem is spent the right way.
Exactly. And there has to be accountability. Where is the money going, and why are we're not seeing any results? And you know, I'll leave it kind of start to end on this with the safe injection. There is no such thing as safe heroin use.
No.
You might be able to save this person today, but if you're not trying to get this person out of that cycle of addiction, right, they're eventually going to die from putting heroin in their arm every day. And look, these sites are not going to be open 24 hours a day. So, and with the fentanyl, you're right. I mean, it's just not. Number one, heroin's going to kill you over time, but the fentanyl, it's immediate. And you're telling these people, you're normalizing it, and it's making them feel like, oh, if I walk into a site and they're telling me it's okay to do it, then I'm not going to break that cycle. Right. And I have empathy. I believe addiction is a disease. Not everyone believes that. I do. I think these people want to get out of the cycle, but they're trapped. Right. I mean, it's like poverty. Like, no one wants to be poor, but if there's no way out of it, it's
sure.
And guess what? Everyone is affected by this. I don't think there's anyone. If you walk to anyone in Philadelphia and said, "Do you know someone who has died from addiction?" And whether it's drug addiction or alcohol, someone knows someone who died because of addiction.
The rate of addiction deaths, or for the fentanyl, especially now with fentanyl, are staggering. It could be the number one cause of deaths in America right now. It's actually going to exceed heart disease, which is incredible that we've not taken a more stricter approach to get this resolved. It's just amazing.
And it's sad. It's sad. So we're going to take a quick break. You're listening to The Republican Zone on Usalamedia. Welcome back. You're watching the Republican Zone on Usalamedia. I'm here with my friend and fellow running mate, the Philadelphia City Council at large running mate, Jim Hasher. So, again, thanks for coming on, Jim. We touched on drug dealers, heroin use, safe injection sites. Let's talk about some good stuff. Like, number one, we got a Super Bowl coming up. I mean, you can't beat the Birds being in the Super Bowl again. I mean, we went almost my entire life, from 1980 to 2018.
Yes.
Without a Super Bowl win, I should say. We did go to the Super Bowl. When was the Super Bowl before? It was in 2003? 2000? When we lost.
Yeah.
So then, and now, like, it feels like it was just yesterday that we were in the parade on the Parkway.
Yep.
And we're going back. Now, as a bar owner, you just must be like, wow, this is incredible.
I mean, what it's done for small business has been incredible. Not just the Eagles, but with the Phillies going to the World Series. This is a back-to-back.
Exactly, yep.
You know, we're very blessed here. I mean, to have what we have. And I just spoke to somebody the other day saying, not just the bars and the restaurants, but the hotels, people that are in the printing business, people that are basically just, in every field that in small business are benefiting from this. I mean, people are happier. People are...
Well, people go. I went out to a Young Republicans event last night. It was a Tuesday. You would have thought. I think just people are excited, so they're like, "I want to be out. I want to be out with other people. I want to be talking about the Eagles." And so, a bar that on a Tuesday night would probably be not crowded at all.
Yeah,
it's packed, and I think we're going to keep seeing. I think this weekend people are going to be excited going out. Obviously, the day of the Super Bowl, it's going to be incredible. And we just had the Phillies. The Phillies probably must have been a bigger boom because it's not just one game. It's well, we didn't get the 7. And hey, I think we might have another one in a few months with Joel Embiid and the Sixers.
We can only hope. The trickle down effect is incredible.
Yeah.
And people think, it's just the actual the restaurant or the bar, or it's actually the food vendor, it's the beer vendor, it's the drivers, it's the salesmen that sell the product. Everybody benefits from this, and it's amazing how it works. It's just people are happier, the economy goes better with it. It's just everything, and it's just a better feel for the city.
And it's a great boom, coming. We're still seeing the effects of the pandemic. There's still some. I live in Center City. There's still stores that have not opened yet, not reopened. So I think this is my local tavern, Cherry Street Tavern, was decimated during the pandemic. Great bar, great guys, great owners. That bar is, I've seen it. They're packed every night.
Yeah.
So I think you guys needed it. The small business owners, the restaurants, the bars, they needed this. So this is the perfect time.
Sure. And 30% of our businesses, especially small business, did not reopen after the pandemic. Yeah. So that was a big jolt to the city. I mean, 90% of this country is employed by companies with 20 employees or less, and 30% of them didn't reopen after the pandemic. So we took a bad shot here. So all these little things, like not these little things, but the Phillies getting into the World Series, the Eagles being in the Super Bowl, the Sixers playing so well, it all helps us snap back and maybe rebound a little bit better.
Now, it's great. I know Cherry Street is having an issue with staffing. Are you seeing that in your bar? Are you having trouble hiring people? Is the turnover still a problem?
Yeah, I think probably up until about a month ago, we were fighting for staff. And I think that had to do with the fact that, so many people found different careers.
Sure.
People in our industry, in the service industry, realized that, hey, this is going to be a problem. They can't support their family, pay their student loans, especially these younger families. So I think they found other avenues. So I think the service industry was affected by the pandemic because people went another direction. But I think we're just starting to feel, as the economy maybe tightened up a little bit, that people are coming back to the service industry and are going to be more a part of this now.
Are you seeing that you're having to pay people more?
Absolutely.
Which is not necessarily
and that's not a problem.
People always ask me, Drew, are you in favor of minimum wage? I said, no. I said, the market should determine the wage. I said, just look at where we are now. The market is determining the wage, and the leverage is in the employee.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the truth. I mean, the bottom line, the competition will make its own minimum wage.
Exactly. That's what I say every time. I said, well,
and that's what happens.
People are like, well, we need $15 minimum wage. I said, I don't want people to make $15 an hour. Right. I want people to make $30 an hour, but I don't want to dictate it, because all that's going to do is, number one, minimum wage will cause a little bit of inflation. It could cause some unemployment, because most people probably already make that $15 an hour. But they're small businesses who, you know what, if they need 2 people, if they could hire 2 people, but if you set a minimum wage of 15, they might not be able to hire those 2 people. And it's a lot of part-time work. So, but let the market determine the wage, and I think we're seeing that now in a good way.
Yes,
that
absolutely.
Employees,
no question about it. I mean, I think sometimes people, when you talk about minimum wage, you deter people from hiring because of it.
Yeah.
So I think, like you said, it'll take its own course. I mean, competition will make its own minimum wage. And I don't think you'll hear much of an uproar from people. I think, if somebody does their job, shows up for work, they're going to be paid accordingly.
Sure, absolutely.
Yes.
Now, how about on the supply side? In the bar, are you seeing prices starting to level off at all? Is it still increasing? Are eggs? Everyone talks about the eggs, but you probably don't have that.
It's funny. We went through this wing crisis where
that's right. There were a shortage of wings,
and God forbid that should happen during the Super Bowl. But we're back to normal with that. But as soon as we go back to normal and cheese calms down and chicken calms down, the state hits us with an increase in liquor. So we're never going to get away from it. As you know, we face some of the biggest sin taxes in the world right here in the city of Philadelphia. We have the liquor tax, supposed to be a short-term tax back to help the school district many years ago.
There's no such thing as a temporary tax.
No. And then we had the sugar tax. Again, these are things that, hopefully the money's allocated in the right direction with the sugar tax, with these playgrounds. But again, that's where the accountability comes in again. But we get hit hard every time we turn around with something like this.
Sure. I'm still waiting for us to go back to 7% sales tax.
Yeah.
The temporary, we have to do it. It's only going to be for a short term. And this was under Michael Nutter, who I think was was a good mayor. But I'm still waiting for that temporary tax. And on your real estate side, I tell people that we have our transfer tax it's ridiculous, and I don't think most people realize that. Yep. People get the closing cost, and I think they have a sticker shock, but they don't realize that if they just go over to Bucks County,
sure, it's 1%.
It's 1 and 1, and then Philadelphia, because the ones in the state, Philadelphia is 1, and is it like Philly adds like 3.6?
Right, it's 2.45, and basically what happens there is the buyer pays that 2.45, the seller pays that 2.45, but a first-time home buyer, a $246,000 average priced home, I mean, you're talking about $8,000 towards your settlement cost, and you don't realize it, but we give these abatements away, these 3 and 10-year abatements away like nothing, which they've tightened that up too. But if we eliminated the transfer tax for first-time home buyers, we would entice people to want to stay here and maybe probably buy a home here. And I think it's something that just having a small business mindset to bring some of these discussions forward helps.
And we talk about affordable housing, that's a huge barrier to entry, having that huge transfer tax. And look, they call us Taxadelphia for a reason. It's like every time you turn around, there's another tax. And there's one being proposed in city council. I don't think it's going to get any legs, but it's the wealth tax.
Yes.
And it's, you hear people say, well, the rich can afford more tax. It's not a big deal. But, number one, what is their definition of wealth? Right. Number one, I would probably get the wealth tax. I'll tell you, I know I'm not rich. Right. I'm not wealthy. I only have 2 kids. I can't imagine what 5 kids cost you. Right. And it's every time you turn around, they want another tax. There's never enough revenue. Right. I mean, just look at, Mayor Kenny said, well, we're not raising real estate taxes, but when the values of homes go up 10, 15, 20, 30%, you are raising the taxes. Because if you're not changing the millage rate, I got hit with a 40% increase this year. Sure. I mean, it's insane. And I'm lucky I can afford it, but there are people who can't afford it. And so, again, they look over and they say, if I cross City Line Avenue, I'm paying a lot less in taxes.
You look at these people that lived in Fishtown all their lives and were affected by what happened 3 miles from their home because of the assessments,
exactly,
through the roof because of how the boom was in North Liberty's Fishtown Brewery Town, all these places. I mean, these are people that really felt the effect of this. And, Philadelphia is a city and neighborhood. You go block by block here. What's happening on one block may not be happening on another. Your house may not be as updated as the house that Baby was just assessed, which I think is the big problem there. But, when you look at Philadelphia as a whole, when you're a small businessman, even big business now, look at the tax structure, use and occupancy, sales tax, business privilege tax. the sin tax for the liquor tax, the sugar tax, your regular real estate tax. I mean, you can go on and on and on. Your city wage tax.
The wage tax is
one of the highest in the United States, which also comes back if you're a business owner as far as your workman's comp is, you're penalized for that too. So 46% of what comes in that door is being paid out, not to the state or the Fed, but to the city.
To the city.
It's really, it's incredible if you think about it.
And the problem with the wage tax now, I was hybrid before there were people talked about working hybrid. I work from home. I'm on the road a lot. Probably not to some, you're probably, as a real estate agent, you're probably in the car or at a house more than you're in an actual office. So people are saying now, like, wow, I don't have to go into the office every day. Why am I paying this wage tax? I'm going to stay at home. I'm not going to come into the city, or, I can work from anywhere. Why don't I go to a place that doesn't have a huge wage tax? And I always use City Line. I grew up on the main line, so I say when I cross City Line Avenue, when you cross City Line Avenue and you can pay only 3.1% wage tax, what's going to prevent people from doing that? And I know I've lived in the city 20 years. When I first moved here, I thought I was going to live here until my children turned 5, and then I was going to go back to the main line. That was just kind of what a lot of people did, and a lot of my friends did. I decided to stay, but I'm taking a huge. My office is in Conshohocken. If I actually lived out near there, I'd probably save 10%. A year in taxes.
No question about it. And I think a lot of times when people come and say, hey, I want to buy a home, especially a first-time home buyer, there was always that problem with the city wage. Their parents were educating that. But now there's also the stigma of crime that is attached with that. So not only are you going to basically pay higher car insurance, you're going to pay higher city wage and all these other things, but now you're going to look over your shoulder while you're pumping gas.
Yes.
Or whether your wife can go to the supermarket and walk out in the parking lot safely. So now it's a combination of, hey, if we're going to retain people and we're going to get people to come in, we're going to have to get creative in what we would do. And it's things like possibly maybe waiving the transfer tax for first-time home buyers.
I think that's a great idea.
I think it's just something that I think that when you look at it in the big picture will allow them so much more to put towards their closing costs and towards their down payment. And that carrot just may be enough to dangle to say, I may want to give this a shot and stay in the city. Yeah.
And look, we started this conversation with crime, and it we're back into it because it is the number one issue. And look, I live in Center City. I'm lucky. My neighborhood does not see the gun violence and the crime that a lot of communities do. But I will tell you, my neighborhood is not as safe as it was when I moved in 20 years ago. 5 years ago, I would have allowed my daughters to walk down to Chestnut Street to hang out. I mean, this is when they were younger. Now I'm hesitant because
I am.
There's a homeless problem that is just exploded in the last few years, and these people need mental health. They have mental health issues. So I'm empathetic, but at the same time, it is dangerous for my children to walk alone by themselves. And I never felt that way 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and it's everywhere. I mean, people don't look. We're talking. We're gonna be knocking on doors in a couple of weeks. A lot of people are not going to open those doors because they're scared. Everyone has we all have the Ring doorbell, which is great because when crime does happen, we have record of it. Yes. I know when something happened, I actually had a package stolen. I called the police. I gave them the film, and they actually caught the guy. So I never thought it was going to happen, but it's even when on more serious crimes, these Ring doorbells can help the police catch people. But it's a sign that we're all a little scared. Yeah. We're in some cases we're a lot scared.
And justifiable. Yeah. I mean, just look what's happening, every day when you turn the news on. That's happening with people getting shot and killed and mugged and carjacked. We went through this phase up in the Northeast, and I'm sure throughout the entire city. But directly affected by it was these catalytic converters being stolen on a regular basis. And I immediately thought, why doesn't the city immediately jump on this? Try to do whatever they can. Go to the state. Let's try to get a level 1 felony for somebody that actually steals a car. I mean, the guy that's fencing it, the guy that's buying it. And the city's, really the state's the only one that can pass that law. That's why it's called the United States of America. Well, then we could also do things like revoke business privilege licenses for junkyards that are...
Sure, absolutely.
All these little things we can do, whether it's an ordinance or not, and then hold people accountable. And maybe slow it down. And then maybe lobby the state hard enough to say, hey, we need a bill passed immediately. House, Senate, boom, pass it.
Exactly.
Well, you're going to think twice, because if you steal that catalytic converter, you're going to do time.
Exactly.
Okay? It's a felony. It's with you the rest of your life, and you're going to sit in a jail for a little while to think about what you just did. So that's what I mean about having somebody with a common sense approach being able to go to Harrisburg and say, we can't do this way in Philadelphia anymore. We're limited to what we can do. We need a state to be involved with this.
And the word common sense, I use that in my campaign. I hear you say it a lot.
Yes.
I say we need to bring common sense back
Yes.
to city council. And come this November, I think there is going to be common sense, because it's going to be you and it's going to be me. We're going to get through.
I hope so.
Absolutely. You know what? I know so. So we are
I got
coming
a
to the
hunch.
end. Oh, I have more than a hunch. My wife says, it's yours and Jim's year. So,
Good.
and I agree.
Let's keep it that way.
That's right. So thank you for coming on. This was a great
Enjoyed it.
talk. We'll bring you back.
We
because
could have probably talked for about 3 hours.
No, yeah, we didn't. We missed a ton of issues. We didn't even talk about education
Yeah.
or any of the issues there. So thank you for coming on. You've been watching The Republican Zone on Usalamedia. I am Drew Murray, your host. Thank you for watching.